Greetings, everyone. Peace and blessings be unto you all. I am Minister Jamie Eatman, and I am indeed on the rise. I'd like to thank you all for joining me, and those of you who shall see this later, I pray that something will be said that's going to be a benefit to you, that will educate, motivate, and inspire you, and hopefully make a difference so that you can make a change in your life. And when you can make a change, we can make a change. There's a life is a fabric, and we are all kind of interwoven together one way or another. Let us pray. Most Holy Father, Lord, we come before you giving you honor, glory, and praise. Father, we just thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing, and all that you're about to do. And Father, I just pray you bless those who will partake of this program today, those who may encounter it later or whenever. And any discussion that may be had concerning it. I just pray that something's going to be said that's going to move or make a difference in someone's life. We just pray that you have your will and have your way. And Father, as we come before you right now, my sentiments are such that I want to ask you to forgive us for any sins we may have committed knowingly or unknowingly. Forgive us for our trespasses and forgive those who may have trespassed against us. The word says to pray for those in authority, so I come lifting them up before you. I pray that you move on their minds, their hearts, and their souls, that they might do righteous. And if not, Lord, I pray that your word will truly be applied. For we know that you are just and you are righteous. Pray that you will have your will and have your way. Thy will be done. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, having gotten that out of the way, I pray all is well with you all. I know that a topic is probably going to be one that some of you all are going to find pretty interesting. The topic is sentiments matter. You know, that's a word, sentiments. There's so many variations of it or derivatives of the word that we use. Sentiments, we're sentimental, too sentimental, overly sentimental. You don't have any sentiments for the next person, no consideration. Just a lot of ways to use it, but we want to first get into this conversation. And when we get into it, I ask those of you who do come into the room, please share your thoughts and text, and I will make them a part of this program. As this topic, you know, I've encountered some things that really made a difference. I pulled down a video of this guy, and his topic was, or his shirt was anyway. It said that Black wealth matters. And he asked a question that was really to determine where are your sentiments? What are your thoughts pertaining to this topic? So, as we get into this term here, we want to hopefully open up some lines of communication, get some input. And if not, hopefully, if it's a monologue, then I'll say something that is going to truly be of a blessing to someone, one way or another. But before I get started, I want to give this group their due justice. I went to this group and I actually attempted to post. And if you look at my post, they really aren't promoting my brand per se. The brand on the rise movement. When I say I'm Jamie Eatman, I'm on the rise. It really is my hope that the people I encounter, I depart, or I get a chance to speak or share with, that they too will be on the rise. When you look at a movement isn't about an individual. It'd just be my thoughts if that was the case. But I look at a mission to improve the mindset, the condition of God's people, my people, people in general. And how do you do that? Educating, motivating, and inspiring. So, yes, I use that line. Yes, I am me. And I will tell you in a heartbeat, I am on the rise. But if on the rise was all about me, if you look at some of the things that indicate how well a podcast or broadcast is doing, you don't find that there. So it's not about the numbers. It's not about the people. It's not about trying to push my brand. It's really about trying to make a difference in someone's life. And I do that because of I am sentimental, you might say, when it comes down to people that may be lost or need some direction in their life. Not that I have it all the answers, but I was lost once and I needed the answers. And those answers came in the form of not someone coming and say, this is what you need to know, but someone saying something that made a difference in my life. Someone being themselves or doing something that made a difference in my life. So naturally, it inspires me to do that same thing for others, and hopefully, it will make a difference in their lives or your lives. You know, no matter, excuse me, no matter how high we get, we can be brought down, and no matter how low we are, we definitely needs to be raised up. And the key is getting to where God would have you in an elevated state, but in a humble mindset, or in an elevated place with a humble mindset. And that isn't something that just happens overnight. Sometimes people need to know that it's okay to think outside of the box or to think above the norm, because this is on the rise movement. So we like to think of it as being above, not that we're above the next individual, but we want to think above our situations and circumstances. Don't want to be that crab trying to pull you back in the barrel. I want to rise above you and the barrel. And that way I can invite you up to where I am. That's what it means to be on the rise. And I am Minister Jamie Eatman, and I am on the rise. I'd like to thank you again for joining me. As we get started with the program, I'm going to start with a definition, because definitions are very important. Sometimes when people are talking, they are saying the same thing, but they literally mean something else. I learned a long time ago that when it comes down to communication, you have to make sure that you're understood, because we can talk all day and people will listen, they'll nod their head, and people that don't understand won't always ask you for additional information. So in communication, there's the sender, there's the communication when you encode the message, the person that receives it decodes it, and they receive whatever from it, and they hopefully will give you feedback. But that doesn't happen a lot today. Communication tends to be one way. People will talk about it, actually, but not at the moment when they should. Usually it's later for a lot of people. But let's talk about this word here, sentiment. Sentiments matter. So let's start off with this definition here. Sentiments, an attitude, thought, a judgment prompted by feelings, a specific view or notion, actually opinion. So when you think about someone's sentiments, if you look at that, we'll just pull these words right on out of here. Their attitude, your attitude, people display their attitude. They're letting you know really what they think. Because it says their thoughts. Thoughts are next. They're letting you know what they think, how they feel. Judgment prompted by feelings. In other words, someone speaks to you. Maybe it try to correct you, make a difference in your life, do something that's going to hopefully help you. But rather than hear that, you get offended because you're, as some people say, in your feelings, prompted by feelings. Wow, that fit right in there, don't it? Prompted by feelings, in your feelings. A judgment prompted by feelings, in your feelings. Makes sense, huh? A specific view or notion. In other words, a preconceived notion or a bias. And it may not even be preconceived, it may be in response to what the person said, but it suddenly becomes bias. And it's really about you, your opinion. So when we talk about sentiments, why do sentiments matter? Because when it comes down to communication, if we look at this definition here, sentiments and attitude, I don't know about you, but I don't like talking to people with attitudes. And when I talk to people with attitudes, I approach them a little bit differently than I do the next person. I usually try to be open and hear what a person says and kind of talk in a manner that is suggestive. But when people get attitudes, I'm a man of God. I like to stand on truth. I like to stand on righteousness. So at that point, I'm not giving any ground. And that's just because I know what I'm up against. When we think about sentiments, some of us are sentimental. We don't know what it is that's standing before us. We don't know what we're dealing with. So we come across with one of those compromising attitudes. Oh, I don't matter. Let's just agree to disagree. And you go on. And that's fine. But not everybody's going to do that. And I'm one of those people that are not. Because I look at, it's very important that truth has a voice. How long must truth be crushed to earth before it begins to rise again? So if it's going to rise again, that means that somebody is going to have to lift it up. Somebody's going to have to utter it. It has to be an utterance. And when that utterance comes forth, it's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to change sentiments of people. So sentiments matter. So if you look at sentiment as being an attitude, thought, judgment prompted by feelings, think for a moment. If you encountered me and you intended to say something constructive to me and I went away angry, would you want me to go away angry based on something that wasn't correct? Or would you want me to go away angry based on something that was right? And I'll tell you from my perspective, I always want a person to walk away on something right. because that makes me feel more comfortable in what just took place. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be worried about how that person got angry at me. Because if you're angry at me over something that's right, I'm not going to entertain how you might feel as much as I would if I did something or offended you in some way and I was wrong. Unlike a lot of people, when I'm wrong and I offend someone, it bothers me. It stays with me for a couple of days. I play it back. I come up with all these reasons. Why did this person think like that? What could have, how could they have taken my words? And, I try to relive that situation because next time I'm in a conversation like that, I don't want to be plagued by the same thing. So again, this is the definition that we're kind of starting with as a premises. An attitude, thought, or judgment prompted by feelings, a specific view or notion or an opinion. Now, because we're talking about sentiments, we say they matter. Are we saying that that's a good thing, that somehow our sentiments rule our life? Our sentiment rules our relationship. Our sentiments rule our conversations. Is that okay? You have to answer that for yourself. But I will tell you, for me, that's not okay. One of the biggest things I try not to do is get in my feelings or my emotions. And how do I avoid that? That's a good question. One of the ways I've learned to avoid that is you have to have something that's greater than you. If you go through life and the only thing that is of significance to you is you, those are going to be your sentiment. That's the attitude you're going to have. Those are going to be your thoughts. But when you go through life and you can find something upon which you can stand and you can comfortably stand there and confront and deal with other people, then you are doing good, because there's something there that at the end of the day, it isn't just somebody's going to talk about you and your ego, because somebody's going to listen to a conversation between two people and they're going to listen. They're listening for right. People know what's right. Even your friends, not just mine. When your friends are with you and you're wrong, they might laugh and comfort you in what appears to be a sympathetic manner. But when they're talking with their friends, yeah, their other friends, the ones you know about, those other friends, they're going to be talking about you. So when they talk about you, what do you want said? Something that was right, that you was right about, or something that you was wrong about. In society today, there's so many divisions. Some things are so divisive. They're designed to separate. But if you're going to be separated, you're going to stand alone, stand apart, set yourself above, feel that you are better than, all those things that people tend to do. It has to be based on something. And hopefully it's not your sentiment. Hopefully it's not just your attitude, your thoughts, and your judgment about based on how you feel. Hopefully there's a little bit more to it than that. And what I was about to do is show you all something here. And I'm showing you this because one, it needs to be shown. This is about sentiments, and hopefully we are learning something about sentiments. I'm going to share a thought with you all. When I do this program and I send an invite, it doesn't bother me when people don't come, or they're not they don't welcome it. That's okay. But there's some things in life that belongs to a bigger picture. And when we find those things, what did I just tell you earlier? Things about attitude, thoughts, judgment prompted by feelings, specific views, notions, or opinions. And usually, if your view or opinion differs than someone else, yes, it is your opinion. But where did it come from? What is it based on? In higher education, when you're doing a dissertation, you have to come with all these other papers where people have quoted other people and all that, to basically do a paper that substantiates what people will accept as being somewhat an educational perspective. Doesn't necessarily have to be true. You can argue or be for or against. But when it comes down to reality, for me in my life, I'm about truth. So this particular thing I wanted to share, because we as a people need to realize there are certain things that we learn, and not everything we learn is good. And when I say we as a people, I'm not just talking we as a Black people. We as a people, period. because injustice is injustice, ignorance is ignorance, and we really need to give some thought to what we're doing. So I want to share this my screen with you for a moment, and there was something that took place, and why am I showing it to you? Because it's a lesson in it, and I think that lessons should be learned. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to see if I can't get this up so you all can see it. Okay, this is up. Let me go back to my screen and see how it's showing. I'm going to see if I can't do a full page on it. Probably won't get that, but I'll tell you all what it is. This is something from uh, Facebook. I sent an invite to a group, and it came back, and this is what it says. It says that this post has been declined by an admin moderator. You can see their feedback, make changes to your post, and submit it for review. And this was the post here. And it said about see details. So when I went to look at the details, this is what I found. Your post was automatically declined. So this is on a machine that just a system that just automatically declines. And it says, "Hey, Bob's members, thank you for your enthusiasm in promoting your brand. To ensure quality and consistency, please note that the only posts for members with a promo package and will be approved moving forward. The upgrade offer exclusive benefits and enhancement support to help you succeed. We currently have a deal going on. Our premium package seeks for details. Contact one of our admins for information on our other group packages as well. We appreciate your understanding and look forward to your continued collaboration." So when I read that, I have a problem with it for a couple of reasons. And no, it isn't just because it was my post. That isn't the case. I want to welcome Brother Gregory. Peace and blessings be unto you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. I was just making a statement. Let me wrap that up, and then we can entertain you properly. I was basically stating that I went to a site, and it was a site about black-owned business, something of that nature, and this type information here, it may not be what most would look at as a promo package for business, but in business, it has business surrounds the mindset. That's people's sentiments toward business has a big decision to do with what they're doing. And I highlighted their response because the response said that they were no longer allowing people to post to promote their brand because they had promo packages that people could buy. So when I looked at that, I actually kind of look at the difference. Someone trying to do something for a collective, which is any and everybody, and someone that's trying to make a dollar that's more concerned with getting that dollar versus getting anything of any construct, as I see it, mentally, spiritually, to their audience. So I was just sharing that because the program is about sentiment. So their attitude was such that I wanted to point that out because some of us may make that same problem, make that same mistake. Because when it comes down to having something to say and to impart, even the customers, when they come in the door, they look for customer service. And if we have wisdom, we should be looking to impart it. So that was kind of why I touched on that. But I wanted to welcome you. How are you doing today? Peace and blessings. Give it up.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm hanging in there, doing everything that I can do. How's your day going?
It's going well. You're not doing everything, Bro Greg. You know that's that saying. No matter how high you are, you could be higher. No matter how low you are, you could be lower. So whatever you're doing, there's more you can do. I encourage you keep rising. There's always a higher ground. But having said that, welcome, welcome, welcome. As you know, our topic for today is sentiments matter. I don't know if you've listened to what I've been stated so far, but what are your thoughts on that? Sentiments matter.
I my thoughts on it are very simple, to be honest with you. The saying goes, the details matter. So do sentiments, and sentiments, in my opinion, is kind of on the same wavelength as details, meaning when you're referring to uh, uh, emotions, period. Um, sentiments are the little details of emotions that make up some of the bigger emotions that we, all know. And sometimes they define what emotions can be.
I agree with that. Now, let me ask you this question. When you look at sentiments based on, as you just stated, those little fine details, uh, those sentiments and fine details are going to vary depending on who the individual is. Does there come a point when we have to draw the line when it comes to sentiments?
Yes, I believe that there you have to draw a line in the sand for any emotion, whether it's good or bad, and you have to be able to categorize it, and you have to be able to use those details or sentiments to define what category it falls into.
Right. And I just gave this definition here. Sentiments, an attitude, thought, or judgment prompted by feelings, a specific view or notion or opinion. Um, and I like what you said because it's important because everybody's view matters. But by the same token, if you start looking at a collective, there comes a point where some of those sentiments may not be acceptable for what is going on or even appropriate. We was on a Wednesday, we talked about the three different type of people. I think it was Wednesday. The aggressive person, you can do whatever you want as long as you don't bother me. The assertive person that's going to want to stand for right, what is just. And the passive person is going to do whatever just to make sure that there's no argument. So when you get those three type of sentiments operating within a group, do you see where there could be a conflict with that?
Yes, I definitely can see a conflict because one group of people is going to view the world one way, and the other two groups are going to view the world in their own respective ways. So if me, as let's just say I'm a passive person, I throw my hands up there, look, that ain't got nothing to do with me. And the aggressive person is telling you, if you don't do something now, it will have something to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two sides of the same coin, but one person is not doing anything until they have to, and one person is being aggressive and proactive about doing something before they have to do something.
Right. Now, looking at those two people you just described, which one would you want on your team? Which one would you want to work for?
Well, I'm a proactive person. I try to get things done. Well, I could say I'm proactive and I'm passive, like in the sense of I know for a fact that if I don't do a certain thing, it's going to haunt me later down the road. So I have to do it now. I have to be proactive. I have to be aggressive about doing what I need to do. Whereas I don't do everything that I could do in this world to be aggressive and be assertive about something that I know is going to affect me down the road. Like, prime example, I know for a fact I need to save as much money as possible because I know down the road there's going to be a time where I need that money. Whereas my passive side would say, well, I don't need that money now, so I might as well, just have fun with it. But that passive side is not always looking into the future. They just kind of in the moment type of people.
Right. And I get what you're saying, and I like the way you did that because you kind of put it in a nutshell where the only person it impacted is you. And that for that something like that, you'd be good at almost anything you did. But when it gets to the point where we are bring those and we come and bring those thoughts and views to a collective, that's where you begin to see the impact of it because remember we said an attitude, thought, or judgment prompted by feeling a specific view or notion or opinion. So when people come together in that collective, and it's like you said, if you're doing things because you know they need done and they're going to impact you, you be more assertive at doing that because it's you. But imagine a work environment where you're coming to, and those same three intimate mindsets are still at operation. Can you see how that would differ, or as you in an environment or group setting where there would be something expected?
Yes, I've had pretty much all office jobs in my adult life, and from what I've experienced is uh, both sides of that situation. So I've experienced where uh, someone has done something. I've witnessed them do something and put my hands up like, look, that ain't got nothing to do with me. And I've been on the other side of that where I said, look, I stepped in and said, you need to stop doing whatever you're doing or you're going to get fired. And they tell me it doesn't have nothing to do with me. And then they get fired. And then the third side of that being the aggressive side of that, where I said, look, you need to stop doing this now or you will be fired.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if you don't stop, I will fire you. And
Right.
they stop what they're doing. So, those three sides I've experienced firsthand, and um, the result is typically the same, except for that last one, where the last one I usually give the other person the choice: look, stop what you're doing, or you're going to be fired.
Right.
And
Okay.
they, when I mention termination, their ears perk up because 9 times out of 10 people need their job. I don't care what people say. I don't need this job. Yes, you do. You wouldn't be
Right.
here if you didn't need that job.
Right. Right.
So I in the workplace setting, especially in office workplace, I tell people you need to work like it's your last day, like you on the edge of your seat. And unfortunately, I have been in that situation where I work like it's like my last day, and my boss come to me, look, I was gonna fire you, but shoot, I can't argue with those numbers you put up.
Right.
So, I tell people work like it's your last day, like you on edge, because no tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well do everything you can do today.
Right, I got you. And you said something that's very important there, because with those three things you gave, and you actually show where you are assertive, aggressive, as well as passive, or how you can be. But before I get to what you said about the job, that person that said that I was thinking of firing you, look at our definition: an attitude, thought, or judgment prompted by feelings. Whatever it was that made him feel like he should fire you, he did not. So, in other words, he went against what his sentiments were, and he did that based on what?
You did that based off emotion.
Well, that was what he was wanting to act on, was his emotions, but he didn't because of what?
Or because of the threat of termination.
Right. Well, no, I mean, in the manager's case, when you say he said he was going to fire you, but those numbers speak for themselves. What I'm getting at here is when it comes down to emotions, we can be in our emotions, but one of the things that tend to curtail our emotions becomes the facts. A person can feel a certain way or have a certain thought of you, but the reality that you present, it should override that if you're dealing with the right person. Some people, the sentiments
Correct.
can be changed. So when you say that guy said that his sentiments, he expressed to you what his sentiments were. He wanted to fire you, but because of
Absolutely.
what you were doing, he gave that another consideration. But I wanted to say, when you mentioned all the office jobs you had, going back to what I was alluding to, if you were the boss and you saw those traits in those individuals before they came in and you hired them, would that influence whether or not you did hire them?
Absolutely. Prime example is I refuse to hire anybody for my company born before 1995. I mean, born after 1995. I refuse to hire them because I have 100% rate of them being lazy. It's sad.
Okay. So your sentiments are that anyone born before that, chances are they are going to be lazy or not going to be productive, correct?
I'm sorry, I meant the opposite. So if you're born before 1995, you have good ethics. You know you need to work for stuff. Whereas if you're born after 1995, you know that I think it's Generation Z or X or one of them generations.
Right.
I forgot which one it was, but they seem to be on their phone all the time. They seem not to do. They don't. Their quality of anything is just not as good as it should be. Whereas I could tell them all day long, this is how you do this, exactly like this. It's not a difficult task, but I need you to do it this way. And they zone out. They don't do it. I don't know how to explain it. They just, whereas someone born before 1995, I say, this is how you do this. And then they come back to me and say, well, we probably can do it this way to make it more efficient. Well, that's what I want to hear.
Right. That thinking, they got a brain, that input. Yeah, that makes a difference. And and you have a point there, but I will say this, because I'm one of those individuals that what you just said is akin to being in a conversation and a woman says, men are this, because there's different personalities, as we just talked about the assertive, aggressive, and the passive. So that sentiment, and I like the way, because this kind of brings home the lesson here. That sentiment you have is what you're going to do as far as the thoughts and how you're going to judge that scenario. But the reality is, that's not everybody, but the chances are, by acting on that sentiment, you wouldn't end up with that individual in your office who did have those sentiments. So I could see where that would apply. And that's a good thing to bring out, because some people don't realize, the verbal communication is one thing, but the nonverbals are just as weighty. Have you ever experienced that? Are you one of those individuals that you can read the nonverbals?
Oh yes, I was taught as a young man to read the room,
Okay.
and I'm desperately trying to teach my adult nephews and nieces now. Like, you have to learn how to walk into a room. Don't say nothing to nobody, but just take a look around, read the room. And I've been practicing with them. We have family gatherings. I tell them, walk in. I'm like, don't walk into a room. Just walk into the doorway. Look left, look right. Give me the foremost things that stand out to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell me what they are, and I'll tell them whether that was important or it was not important. So that when that comes down to, you don't have to be an older person to understand what that means to read the room, but you have to understand that it takes practice. And when it comes down to relationships, it's the same thing. Instead of reading the room, you're reading your opposite. You're reading whoever you're attracted to. You're reading their actions. They can flap their gums all day long, but it's what they do is who they are.
Right. Right.
So if a woman tells you, I'm gonna show up at 7 o'clock, and she shows up at 7:15, you have a choice there. You can give her a second chance, or you can understand that she is a person that likes to be tardy.
Right. Right. I
And
like
so,
that. 15 minutes,
so
Gregory.
look, if it's the same thing you do, if you late for job, what do? You call in at
Oh,
at
I got you. That's the things
6:58.
she could have done. Right. Okay.
Yeah, you call in at 6:58 and say, "Look, I'm running late because of this, and that. I'm gonna be there at 7:15." If someone in a relationship doesn't give you that same courtesy, then why are they there?
Right. Right.
So don't waste your time with someone that's not going to even give you a courtesy call. Just say, you know what? It's billions of people in this world. You have a good day. Be blessed, and keep it
Right.
moving.
Right. And I like that because when it comes down to sentiments, that's two things that a person has to consider because what you are observing is this person's behavior, their actions, and actions express your thoughts. Supposedly, in most cases, a person they'll show you quicker who they are than they will tell you. For most people, so you're right, and and the fact that you teaching them how to read the room and teaching them how to read the room, you're also teaching them how to be a part of the room. So just like they're looking for these things and you're addressing them, they also know that these are things that they shouldn't possess. So that's a good teaching too. I like that. Well done, well done. What are their thoughts of it? Can they see the difference, or have they seen the difference since you've been doing that with them?
Actually, the second oldest one, he just went off to FAMU, and this was his first year, so he's here for the summer. He's getting ready to go to his second year, and he gave me a call this past summer, and he said, Uncle Greg, you know what? I really appreciate you telling me how to read a room. Because I literally would tell him to stop. As soon as he walked into a family gathering, stop. What do you see? And like I did that with all three of them. The older one, she understood. I already taught her, so she understood what was happening. And maybe she told him a few things, that he didn't understand that he wasn't able to ask me. But he gave me an example. He was like, I went to my second week at FAMU. When I read the room, I understood there were certain people I didn't know I didn't need to be around.
Right.
And he said my second class was a lecture style class. I stood at the top of the lecture room, and I looked down to see who was taking notes and who wasn't taking notes. And he said the class didn't even start, but there was people already taking notes, and I sat next to them, and they turned out to be some of the highest scholars in that particular class.
Right.
I go, well, there you go. Sit next to the smart people. You'll learn stuff. And he said, yeah, I absolutely did. And he said, I got my summer job because of it. Well, there you go. And
There
he
you
said, well,
go.
what about them other people? He said, I don't know what them other people did, but he was like, I didn't concern myself with them. I said, you daggum right. That's how you do it. Don't concern yourself.
There you go, and that's a great way to be. That person has learned well. As a matter of fact, I commend you as your teaching in your teaching. That's what being on the rise is about. When you can educate, motivate, and inspire individuals to rise above situations and circumstances. And that report that he gave you, the things that he received later, all came from observing going in. And had you not given him that, as he told you, he probably would have went the other way. Wrong group. I'm gonna cover this last little piece, and I'm gonna show some sentiments that people may not realize. But this just says here that emotions are redefined feelings. They're delicate sensibility, especially as expressed in a work of art, emotional idealism, a romantic or nostalgic feeling verging on sentimentality. So this word here lends itself to a whole lot of things. And I like the way that we just dealt with it because we didn't get in so much into the emotional aspect as we did into the reality aspect of it. Even though we talked about feelings and how they come into play, I like the way you pointed out that everybody has feelings, but those feelings that everyone has. As a matter of fact, let me ask you this because you did say about the feelings. Do you think a work environment is one where we should really bring a lot of emotion to?
It depends on the environment that you work in. So some places that you work in are actually emotional driven, such as, you know, like an art studio or a design studio. They literally, their creativity is driven off of emotion, how it makes you feel, how does it look, you know, those type of things. Whereas uh, some places that you work in, it's not about emotion, it's about numbers.
Right.
So it depends on what number you put into the keyboard that determines the outcome. So, um, like I said, it depends on the place that you work at.
Uh,
To just to give some example,
Go
let's say
ahead.
if you work at a hospital, that should be more emotional driven because people are coming there because of the emotion of pain or the emotion of trying to just, you know, do right. Whereas, you know, if you are let's say you're a mechanic, you shouldn't bring your emotion to a mechanic shop because it's all about numbers.
Mhm.
You need to bring in as many cars as you can push out, get them done, get them right, and to fix a car, it all depends on numbers. How many quarts of oil you need to change with this part number. It's all about numbers in a mechanic shop, so it don't have nothing to do with emotion. So if someone come in there and say, "I feel sad," like, we don't care if you feel sad. Change this oil.
Right. You know, the last thing you said, you kind of brought home what I was about to say, because emotions in nursing, I'm a nurse. I have emotions. Do you think that my emotions would match my job of my profession?
Yeah, it coincides with having some empathy. You have to have empathy in order to be a nurse, in my opinion. Um,
And
you have to have the ability to be to empathize with your patient and understand where they're coming from. And if you
right,
can't do that, then that's probably not the field you should be in.
right. Now, but see, this is the piece that I wanted to tie into this, because in nursing, if I'm having a bad day, my sentiments and my emotions are going to be off. So when I asked the question about emotions, I wanted to highlight this because your answer was good. Because certain jobs and the level of emotion, depending on, you know, you have this high energy. I love you always come to the work environment this way. But that those terms, sentiments, can also be grouped under professionalism. Because when you carry yourself in a professional manner, for example, nursing, I know this person going to curse me out, or I went to a new person after the person just cursed me out. There's a lot of things that happen during the day that if we were caught up in our emotions, we respond one way. So that emotion, as you stated, we got to know when and what to exhibit. Will you agree?
Yes, yeah. When it comes to angry people, I can't control how they feel about life. I can control how I feel about life.
Right. And that's why I asked the question, because we want them to know, the angry people, that when they come into an environment, that may be your truth, that may be your reality, that may be how you feel. But the reality is, as you stated, you're on a job now which calls for professionalism in contrast to our feelings or our emotions. There's a line there that we need to be aware of. And as much as humanly possible, we need to remember where we're at, because that would eliminate whether it's okay to be sentimental or to have certain sentiments or not. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay. I wanted to transition to the I sent you some slides. Let me see if I can get them up here properly. I'm gonna go back down here. Let me get them in here first. Sentiment slide. Okay, and I think this is gonna move us around properly when it comes up. Okay, like right now, let's say sentiment. When you think about a sentiment, or do you do any investing, stock market, anything like that?
Not extensively, no.
Okay. Well, people that do the stock market, you know, you've always heard them. They study the sentiments. What are the people doing? What are their attitudes? What are their thoughts? You know, all these things people can judge. And I'm bringing this up because in a market, people can judge our sentiments. If you look at the United States, there's some things because we don't know, we really don't have any sentiments one way or the other. But I want to bring some things to the forefront. This is a slide I found here. It says that the U.S. Treasury has 57 billion in cash on hand. It's a lot of money, right? While the government carries a 31 trillion in debt. That's the equivalent to an average person having $1,000 in cash on hand and $543,859 in debt.
Right.
And that's where we are. We in a country where we deny certain things based on our credit score, but yet reality is this is the country that we're in. It just seems like there's something wrong with that picture, wouldn't you say?
Yes, they also tried to lie to us and tell us, "Oh, debt is okay. Debt is good." No, it's never good. I don't care. I don't know who made up this lie, but whoever said debt is good is not in debt. They're just trying to level the playing field for all the creditors to collect. That's all they're doing. You should never be on debt.
If at all possible, you're correct. And then when you look at the things that it costs you more money when you're doing whatever you're doing. And as a result of that, some of the things that you never, I shouldn't say never, but you find it difficult to obtain, someone else gets very easily because, as you just stated, they are more conscious as it pertains to debt. But I wanted to put this up here, this slide up here, because there's some things going on in the world, and I wanted to kind of look at us as a community. Hopefully, people can see this slide well. It isn't really all that clear to me, but I wanted to point some things out. If you look at this slide here, where you see on the far right or far left, depending on how you see it, you'll see those three lines that kind of go up and with a red line that drops down in the middle. And then on the far end, you'll see where there's like a little step that goes, a real steep step, and it goes down. Now, and looking at that, and when we talk sentiments, people that invest, they look at stuff like this and they decide, well, this is a good time to buy or this is a good time to sell. And I wanted to share this because in reality, when you look at what this tells us, people make a living, people make profit on predictability. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Right. Some make it and some lose. But I got this because this symbol up here, GUAP, is very significant. This is a symbol here for a coin that was created for the people of color around the world. And if you look at it, you can't really see the numbers, but this coin, this particular coin or token is less than 1 cent at the moment.
Right.
And if you look at where it was before those steep drops there, it looks as though everybody has abandoned this coin. But in reality, this coin is doing what actually you would hope it to do. Because as it drops, I think the other one may be a little bit clearer. Well, these numbers here, it dropped down to 290 was to sell, but the next buy is at 513. And what makes that important is this. That drop there is where people that know what they're doing and observe sentiments. I'm going to show y'all why this is important. This dropped to 290. So when it drops down here, that means that somebody decided they needed money or this wasn't working or whatever the case may be. So they sold it for 290. But the next person that buys it at 519. So when the person buys it at 519, that isn't quite, as a matter of fact, that's a double, right? No, not quite a double.
Almost.
Yeah. So when it goes up like that, that means these individuals down here that had the stock that didn't sell it like that person did would then actually make a profit because it's going up. But this cycle, if you look at it, the up and down is the norm for a market. But this right here, sentiments, I want to bring a point home. We talk about our community and how long the dollar stays within it. We've heard that for years. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, repeat it one more time.
The amount of time the dollar stays in our community, we've been hearing that for years, right?
Yes.
But have we done anything to change that? Do you think? Do you think that that is continues because of our sentiments, in other words, our thoughts? Or do you think it continues because that's just something that's bound to be that way? What do you think the problem is?
Well, um, it's it's a combination of a few things, and I can put it very plainly for you. If I were to pull out of my wallet $100 bill, you would say that's $100, correct?
Correct.
Now, in 1939, if I were to pull out $100 bill, you would say that was $100, correct?
Correct.
In 2045, if I pull out $100 bill, how much would that be?
It's still going to be $100.
So the money has never changed. The value of money has never changed. What has changed is the value of products. So when you're looking at this and people saying, oh, digital coin is the future, and digital coin, they're trying to make it so that it can be equal to anybody's dollar. So when they say a dollar in America is one piece of paper or one coin, they're trying to say that Bitcoin, or they're trying to quantify what a digital coin is.
Mm-hmm.
And because a digital coin has no physical representation, they have to attach it to something. So they try to attach it to whatever money is physically available. So a physical $100 bill has to be equal to how many Bitcoins or how many GUAP.
Right.
It's the same way. So the same way, now once it establishes itself as that number, then every time I pull out $100, it has to be equal to that Bitcoin. The reason why people are kind of nervous about Bitcoin, because just as I pull out $100 at any given time period in America, it still will be $100. When you pull out one Bitcoin, it may not be one Bitcoin. It may be a fraction of a Bitcoin. Because it can change. It's not a physical representation of anything.
Right.
So that $100 bill is a physical representation of how many dollar bills equal to 100, whereas a digital coin doesn't have a physical representation.
I like your answer because you made my response real easy, because a dollar will always be a dollar, right?
Right.
Now, I just went over this picture about sentiments and how people can actually sell their crypto and the price goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say this was at right here, this was 0.4 of a penny, and now is actually 0.2. Now,
but it's 0.2 of what you just said. It's 0.2 of what?
Well, no, they use the dollar value. See, if you're in any country, you have to measure by, it's like metrics and inches. We know we're talking the same distance, but in order to understand them, we use the various measurements that quantify that we relate to.
Right. Exchange rates.
Right. So what you just stated earlier is a perfect example promoting digital currency. Let me tell you why. Because that $100, like the dollar right now, when Bitcoin was at $50, what was it at? $50, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the dollar at?
I'm not sure.
It was at $1. A dollar is going to always be a dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bitcoin went up to 13,000 a coin, what was the dollar still at?
$1.
So when Bitcoin went up to $60,000 a coin, what is the dollar still at?
$1.
So when you do the math on that, is Bitcoin or digital currency, does it sound like based on history, past history, does it sound like a creditable investment? There's always risk. You know, the dollar can, any country's money can be devalued. But when you look at the possibilities, like say guap, for example, that's down to that level now. When it goes back up to that level, like right now, you might get twice as many guaps for your dollar. But when guap goes back up to that level where it was, you're going to get half of that for your dollar. Now, if guap goes up above the level where it was, that means at that point you're getting less guap. So the person that bought their guap and got more, they now have more money, more wealth, because that you bought at the low price, which is what makes this, why I'm bringing this up. If we invested at this low price, because nobody is aware that this coin here has the potential to do what Bitcoin did, or even Ethereum or Litecoin, which is at $90. If you could imagine something that's less than a penny going to 10 cents, that's 10 times the amount that you invested, depending on when you buy it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's just say, for example, somebody listened to us, and we spoke with a few people. They shared this particular thing that I was showing here. And the reason I showed this is important because right here it says that this is 5,123 is the next price, a number of coins. The next number is 130. The next number is 11. Let's just say someone had actually $2,000 and actually invested. This coin would go up to, right now it's at 290. If this coin went up to 918, depending on who bought what where, somebody will have made more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as it starts to go up and the traction starts, it does what any other the coins in the market do. They have the potential to go up. So go ahead, I'm listening. I'm enjoying this conversation.
What creates traction? You hit a key word. What creates traction?
I'm glad you asked that. The whole concept of me speaking about us and the dollars in our community. Let's just say we had maybe 1,000 people decide they're going to spend $10 on Bitcoin. That's $10,000, right?
Right, but no. So you're getting to what the answer is. The simple answer is faith.
No. It isn't faith. See, sentiments. You notice the conversations about sentiments. When we were talking earlier, we spoke about sentiments, certain actions that's based on our sentiments, depending on how we think. Because when you say faith, if most people of the faith community is going to tell you they're not going to put their faith in any dollar, currency, or whatever.
Right, exactly.
But here we go though. You've never heard me talk currency. You've heard me talk community. And I'm showing you this because if we want to empower our community and if we want to enrich our community, we have to come up with means of doing so that are practical. How do you change the conversation concerning the amount of time the dollar stays in the Black community? How do you change that?
You keep the dollar in the Black community.
And you don't export it. You want to, as long as possible. In other words, there's this thing that says it stays in the Black community for a certain amount of time. And that amount of time isn't very much at all. So when you look at the fact that it's not very much at all, the question becomes, what can we do to change that narrative? People get paid money and jobs But in order to do that, you have to have money, businesses that are successful enough to give those, right?
Right.
So when money stays within the community, it is thought that it will empower those jobs. So when people are able to come up with the jobs and produce the jobs, then that changes the narrative about how much money, how long the money stays in our community. I was speaking with someone. If you think about it, you get most of us get paid. We want to do something nice. I want to take my wife out. I'm going to the other side of town. My money just left the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I go get groceries, there's very few black grocery stores. So my money just left the community, right? So
Right.
all the things that we represent as consumers, if we focused on putting some of those things back in our community or shopping with the few people that did have it, that would change that conversation overnight, right?
Right. So let me paint you a picture. So the reason why the black dollar does not stay in the black community is a social struggle and a social chokehold on the black community. The reason why that happens is because they put in front of black people, especially young people, what success supposed to look like. That's what black people think success supposed to look like. Oh, you're supposed to buy this, you're supposed to buy this, you're supposed to buy that. And typically, if you see any black celebrity, they're never wearing, driving, or eating anything that comes from their community. They're usually driving a Ferrari that doesn't even come from the same country. They're wearing some sort of English or Chinese garments, and they're eating food that's typically not made. That the idea doesn't come from America. So in order for that to happen, you have to take a group of people and say, especially people that are looked up to, and say, look, I want you to wear this, I want you to drive this, and I want you to say this. And that will change the social nature of how black people think, because that's going to take decades. Like, let's just be honest with it. And the people that were, if we go all the way back to when I was a child, when I was in the 80s, a child in the 80s, people looked at success as buying things that did not exist in your country, your own country. And around the world, that's almost the same sentiment. You don't buy things that usually come out of your country. And, like, for instance, prime example, a lot of people will tell you some of the best leather shoes are Italian made. When if you go to Italy itself and you ask them what is the best leather shoe you can find, only half of them will say it's an Italian shoe. The other half will say, "Oh no, it's a North African shoe. Oh no, it's a British shoe." And
Mm-hmm.
that's generally the consensus around the world. They usually never invest into their own country. Now, America was one of the few countries that invested in itself for a very long period of time, up until about the 80s. We made our own cars, we made our own energy, we made our own food, and then we started plucking the best of every other country. Now, granted, we're a country of immigrants, but at the same time, there's a few things that we had that were our own. And instead of putting the narrative that America is the best country to buy this and investing within ourselves, we started showing the narrative, oh, well, if you want to, do good for yourself, you need to go outside of this country and get whatever you want and bring it into this country. Because, like, if you go down Peachtree Road right now, you will see only 25% of those cars are American cars. And it's a sad truth, but that goes the same for the black community. If you go down any black community, you'll see almost 0% of black clothing, black black food, black this. You'll see very few. So it's, even though you're talking about $1, you have to talk about a social economic change first. You have to talk about a social idea, and then you have to put in the idea into people. It's okay to buy from black people, and it's okay to produce a black product that is so good. Like, I'm not a vegetarian, but I'm going to eat it slutty vegan because it's black owned. I'm supporting my black people. I'm not a vegetarian, but I will eat there. Like, she has some amazing banana pudding. I employ anybody to go there to go get her banana pudding, because she's a black woman that started and she stayed in the black community. She didn't branch out to white communities. Now, granted, she's starting to get so big that she has to use things that that doesn't necessarily line up with some vegan ideologies, but I'm pretty sure she'll reel herself back in, because someone, once her numbers start going down because of that, she'll bring it back. That's just what restaurants typically do. They get so big, they have to take shortcuts, and then they bring it back eventually. Go ahead.
Let me grab the floor. I like most of what you said, and the piece that you said about you support your businesses almost contradicts most of what you were saying about, you gave all these reasons as to why people don't. And you're right. There's a certain mindset that has been in existence and still exists. That was the question. That was the statement I threw at you as to how do you change that? And you nailed it. It isn't just the economic; it's a social economic issue. And until the day that we choose to address that, most things in life are about choices. In other words, that vegan place that you go to, if that going to the vegan place, if there were people that didn't know of it and made a conscious decision, how many other places are there that we can choose from? We're going to visit or frequent this number of places, or we're going to invest this number of dollars in the community. Now, I like what you said about socioeconomical aspect of it, because that's actually something that is being put together now. And it's a program that is designed to incentivize and reward consumers and businesses for their consideration. Because how do you change people's actions? You change their mind. So when a person becomes considerate, their consideration, their cooperation, and their commitment to what? Spending more dollars with their community. How do you reward and incentivize that? As that same token that I just showed you. If it was a small community and this particular experience or experiment was done, and people saw where this went up from that 1 cent to that 10 cent, that means that somebody that bought this when it was less than, maybe they spent $100, they are now looking at $1,100 by the time it gets to a dime that was made from that coin. And it just continues from there. And borrow the investment aspect, because some people aren't going to get that. But what it would do, it would fuel our dollars back into our community. In other words, once you converted it to a guap, and the people tell you, no, I'm not doing that program. The same businesses that you support 100% right there in your neighborhood, when they tell you that they're not doing that program, that should be like a slap in the face. So every time we get slapped, at that point, we should begin to realize, hey, there's a problem here. Your dollars represent power. But if we are ignorant with our dollars, we're just going to do what we keep doing. And it's time to change that. That narrative, it ain't going to take a long time. It could actually be done overnight. But it's going to take, just like you said, people that's willing to educate, motivate, and inspire others to change that. And what we call that here at The Rise is to rise above that situation and circumstances. But until we rise to the occasion, we'll never be able to rise above the circumstances and the situation. So there is hope. I've been trying to get to this aspect of the program, but there's more to it, because this little conversation is the beginning. And what unfolds beyond here actually becomes the change. The education has to be on a much broader scale. but at least we talking. Do you see the
Right. Right.
potential with the conversation?
Yes. Like here I can show you a very good example. My brother, my younger brother, he went to an all-white college. I went to an all-black college. Our experiences were very different, and we both played sports. I played baseball when I was in college. Josh, he played football when he was in college, and our experiences were completely different. Like when I was telling him about, stories of going to chow hall and having some of the sororities and fraternities come and put on a show while we eating. He was like, "Well, I didn't have that in me." It was kind of quiet when we go in there, and it was like, well, "Shoot, you're only going to experience that in a black college." Unfortunately, that's sorry you missed out. Now, my older sister, she went to a black school, and she was like, "Yeah, I remember when they did this and that and the third." I was like, "See, you're only going to experience certain things at a black college that you would never experience at a white college." And so, like when I was talking to my nephew, he basically had a full ride to go anywhere. And my sister and we were talking to him and said, "Look, you can see the difference in our experiences between me, my sister, and my brother." And he said, "Well, shoot, man, I want to go to a black school because it sounds like, the culture is always there." And I said, when Josh went to his school, there was a lot of cultural appropriation. And, he didn't pick up on it the first couple months he was there, but then he started to pick up on it. Especially some of his teammates, being that he was around them, generally speaking, the majority of the day, between classes and football practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him, I said, we didn't have that problem. Granted, there were white people, Asian, Hispanics, they all went to our school, but it was majority black. And so, if anything, they were learning from us and they respected us enough to know that I'm not going to copy y'all. What I'm going to do is share this with my family and we're going to share our culture with you. So I feel like there was more culture sharing at a black school versus a white school. And Josh, he confirmed it. He said, "Yeah, well, shoot, they called me all kinds of names because I did certain things, being that I'm from the South." And I was like, "Well, shoot, we didn't get." I said the only two names that you would ever get called in a black college is light skinned or dark skinned. One of those two. That's it. You're not going to get called anything else. And like, you're not going to get called, something so horrible that you got to file a report about it. Like when I stepped outside of Tuskegee, that was my first time experiencing racism. Inside of Tuskegee, I didn't experience racism. It was more of a classist thing, but that's another conversation.
Right. But let me interject for a second. Did you if and this will be a topic by itself, to be honest with you, because the things that you were exposed to, if you and him wrote down notes about you were called and what was said to you, and you looked at it from an intelligent perspective, the trauma that he experienced might have had been more, as you're looking at it, to do with the fact that these were white faces. But if you look at like, and you said you're either light skin or dark skin, where did that come from? That same thing, that light skin or dark skin is not much different than what they might have called you, because that's something that's been ingrained in us that we need to overcome. That was a means of separating us. That house nigger, field nigger, all those different concepts were means of division. They were divisive. So the fact of what you're saying, it makes sense because everybody there is black. But because everybody is black doesn't mean we have to allow or continue in the mindset that we can say whatever to each other. Because my thought is, and you can probably ask your brothers and compare some notes, but probably what he heard from a different race may have carried a different overtone, but the same thing that he heard, you heard in a different undertone, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at it, there's some education Emmy moments, educating, motivating, inspiring. It needs to take place in both of those areas because it goes back to sentiments. We are comfortable with addressing each other a certain way, but let a white person come and say to us what we say to each other. You know, that's a double standard. It shouldn't really be there, but
I
it
agree with
is.
that.
So the only way we can change that is conversations like this, and like you said, calling it what it is. When we go into an environment, people that have been subject to environments, they don't know. Sometimes it takes you educating them beyond their ignorance. My people perish or destroyed for lack of knowledge.
I
Knowledge is one of those
understand.
things that is so important. It's so imperative if we're going to make a difference in this world. And I think this is a time where uh, differences are being made. People are in this season. I told someone in this season, there's some things that are going to occur. And it's just a matter of someone rising to the occasion to be a part of making them happen.
Right, I agree with that. I mean, my experiences at Tuskegee were monumental because uh, our president, he spoke to us. He's retired now. He spoke to us on day one, and he said he doesn't care where you come from. He's, happy that you chose Tuskegee. And the one thing that we did not tolerate on the campus of Tuskegee is the N word. None of us were.
Mhm.
He said, I don't care where you're from. None of y'all are N words. What you are is scholars, students, educated black women, men and women. And like I said before, the most we were ever called was, oh, you light skinned or you dark skinned. But we didn't refer to each other in the way that, you were talking about, the house or the field. It was more we would joke about it and say, oh, well, you need to put on some of this sunscreen or you're going to be looking like him over there. Or the very opposite of that.
Oh,
We would
brother
say,
Greg,
hey, we would
brother
like,
Greg,
put on a white shirt.
brother Greg. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying, and that goes back to we're gonna wrap it up with this word sentiment because what you're expressing is the sentiments were not the same there, regardless of what took place, as long as they didn't use the N word. Whereas
Right.
he, as you said, was exposed to it and didn't quite find it as insulting because of the environment he was in, the complacency to a degree. But
Mm-hmm.
that only shows the work that we got to do, and these type conversations shed some light on it. But as we move forward, we have plenty of opportunity to address these topics. I really appreciate you and your integrity. I love that. I think that's what people need to hear. Hopefully, somebody will share this and stumble across it, and they'll begin to, hear something that's real because a lot of things that are going on, as you said about the celebrities and the people that are wearing all the clothing, those people are getting paid to do that. And the fact that they're getting paid to do that and we're trying to emulate them is why we are buying the same thing that they are buying. And until we change the mindset and we know how to be ourselves, we know how to be economically wise, make sound decisions. And as far as culture, we kind of get a handle on things as to who we are versus who everybody wants us to be. At least at that point, we'll stand for something versus fall for everything or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Any last comments before we go?
Um, buy black and be black.
Buy black and be well. You know what? Buy black and be black with black. So as we start to educate people more on this, hopefully we'll start to see some people embracing and enriched and empowered by GWAP. So as we move forward, hopefully it'll be empowering for everybody involved. But thank you, my brother, and we'll talk soon. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Peace and blessings. And I thank you all for joining us as well. It has indeed been a great program. And you all know that we are now doing On the Rise movement. And this is the one I'm waiting to do. It is the same song and all that, but just watch the video.
This is no time. to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism.
Tonight, for one, will join in with anyone. Don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth.
Greetings, I am Jamie Eaton. Join me Fridays at 8 p.m. for On the Rise movement.
All right. And as you all know, the Bible says, despise not small beginnings. Change starts with one. It has to start somewhere. So as we move forward, let us be agents of change. Let us make the difference. Let us be the difference. Peace and blessings be unto you all.